Waiver Wire Week 3. I'm here with Flat to the Bone, Casey Scheinfold. Casey, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Very good. You take direction well. Big week 2 NFL. I mean, Casey Scheinfold, how many more injuries can we have to running backs? I mean, this is,
oh my gosh,
this is like a record. I played fantasy football for many years. I've never seen so many running backs go down, not just small-time running backs. We're talking about first-round picks going down.
Yeah,
Casey,
it's pretty scary. Nick Chubb last night was that video was brutal.
Well, I sent you a picture that was not broadcasted in the States. It was from the UK. The ESPN or ABC, whoever was covering the game, Disney, would not show a replay of the injury. They refused it, which is nice because it was a horrible. The picture I sent you was horrible. I mean, this knee was like the letter L, basically. It was horrible, Casey Scheinfold. I've seen a lot of injuries, and as soon as I saw that picture, I knew he's done for the year. There's no way he'll ever come back this year, ever. So hopefully, we'll talk waiver wire, but we'll also talk strategy too. But I mean, that's one of the biggest injuries I've seen in a long time, especially to a good guy like Nick Chubb.
Yeah, that was as bad of an injury as you're going to see, I think, when it comes to a knee injury. I don't know how you come back from it.
Let's talk about your New York Giants, Casey. I have a feeling you probably walked away and turned off the TV when you were watching your Giants. Yes, just answer truthfully, yes or no.
Absolutely. When it was 20 to nothing Arizona, I was more disgusted in my Giants than maybe I ever have been. It was just awful to watch.
Because I texted you and I said, you better come back to the TV. I mean, you better watch this. Because they came back. They won the game, but another major injury.
Yeah.
And your coach is like, oh yeah, he might play. We haven't figured it out yet. He's not playing, folks. So don't get any ideas. He's out. So we'll talk about his replacement coming up very soon. But I mean, he's out too. I mean, we got Jonathan Taylor is not playing for another couple of weeks. He might be traded. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to take Chubb's place? I love Ford. He did great. But I still think they need another running back.
Well, they're going to need another one, but I think Jerome Ford is going to be the guy. I mean, he carried 18 times after that and did pretty well. This guy went to Alabama as a super high recruit, was stuck behind Brian Robinson and Najee Harris. So he went to Cincinnati, had a great year.
Cincinnati, a Bearcat.
I think he's got a chance to be the number one going forward, but you got to imagine that they're going to be looking for somebody, whether it's a trade for a Cam Akers. I think Leonard Fournette is probably a more likely choice.
How about Kareem Hunt, who knows the offense, Casey?
He does, but I don't know. I always worry about what bridges he might have burned on his way out of town.
That's true. Like gave some people the finger. Who knows?
Right.
What the guy
so, but I think Leonard Fournette would be probably, to me, the one they would look at.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Cam Akers, who's not happy here in Los Angeles, they deactivated him.
And Sean McVay flat out said in a press conference, he's never taking another snap for my team again.
Oh, he said that. Wow. Yeah. I wonder what he did. I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, he had a pretty good year last year. The last 5 games of the year, he's a top 5 back.
Yeah, he was good at the end once he got his legs back from his injury.
What did this guy do? But it's fine with me because guess who has Williams in our league?
Oh my gosh, Kyron Williams. Yeah, you got him.
I drafted him. I loved him in Florida. I loved him.
You're a smart man.
Very smart. But let's talk. What other running backs do you like on the waiver wire right now that I should go after this week?
That you should go after this week.
This week, I got to put some waiver wire stuff in. This is what I'm missing in our one league I play with you. Ready? Eckler. He's gone.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor is gone. Chubb, I have also. I have those 3 backs in our league. It's a dynasty league. That's why I have such good running backs. So don't get any ideas. Like it's a 14 league team league, whatever.
Yeah.
So I have those 3 guys missing, and I'm devastated.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you had Jerome Ford, that's a plus.
No, I wouldn't have him. He's already taken. But I think Jerome Ford obviously is the number 1 pick this week in waiver wire. Would you agree with me?
Yes, but I wouldn't expect a lot from him this weekend. If you're picking him up, you're not picking him up for this week because he's going against Tennessee, who might have the top-ranked run defense in the league right now.
Horrible defensive backs, though. Horrible defensive
right. So
backs.
it's going to be more of a Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper game than that. I think Roschon Johnson in Chicago is viable.
Like and he catches the ball a lot too, Casey. We've been talking about him.
He has 8 receptions, so he's averaging 4 catches a game. That's a lot for a running back. Zach Moss played for the first time this year. He was coming back from his broken arm in the offseason, and all he did was 18 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown and caught 4 balls. I mean, he's going against Baltimore this weekend. It's going to be a tough matchup, but Jonathan Taylor's not coming back for at least 2 more weeks, and I'm not certain he's coming back at all.
Yeah, I think he might be traded. I mean, I won't be surprised if he's traded to a contender right now. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are 2-0 that could love to have Jonathan Taylor on their team. Is Mozart, is he under 60%? I think he is.
Is he? I didn't see him.
Rasheed Mozart, I thought was under 60%. If he is, you should pick him up. He had a big week last week.
He's at 84%.
Oh, he's at 80 something. I think
the other guys you can look at, you and I talked about this guy all preseason, is Jaylen Warren. You know, he hasn't done much in the running game. He only has 9 carries through 2 weeks, but he has 9 pass catches for 78 yards. And we both believe Najee Harris is looking pretty slow right now. So you can see Jaylen Warren getting a lot more love coming forward, and they go against Las Vegas this weekend, which is a great matchup. And then the other guy I love, and this is me taking a gamble. All the best running backs are falling apart. Who's to say Derrick Henry's not next? And Tyjae Spears, is a very talented
That's a good
rookie. And I think he could have a significant role going forward for Tennessee.
I like that Spears. I think they want to kind of give Derrick Henry a few minutes a breather once in a while, because
especially after watching what happened to Nick Chubb. They don't want him to take that chance. They want to protect their best.
He's like next in line. I mean, just look at the fantasy. Just look at who you draft in fantasy, like in running backs.
So if I told you like 3 first-round running backs would be hurt for extended periods this season, and Christian McCaffrey wasn't going to be one,
I would say you're crazy, Casey.
Exactly. Like the most injury-prone one. So I'm praying that McCaffrey stays healthy. I don't own him, but I love watching him play. So
he had the past 2 games, he's been a monster. McCaffrey's proven why he should be a first pick, or at least in the first 5 picks. Just a monster. Somebody who's not a monster right now is Joe Burrow. Signs for all that money. We call him Joey Bucks now. And I watched him play the past 2 weeks. As you know, I'm an avid Bengal fan, and he did not look 100%. And I had a strain in my calf before. I have friends that have strains in their calves, and it's a hard injury to get rid of. It just doesn't happen overnight. You just don't wake up in the morning and all of a sudden it's better. It doesn't work that way with the strained calf. And I feel bad for him. And the Bengals, I'm sure the fans are upset. They were 0-2 last year too, so they made the playoffs. So I'm not panicking quite yet, but I feel bad for Joe Burrow just because I know he likes to win and he doesn't want to disappoint the fans, and he's making all that money.
Yeah, I mean, I think he should probably be out for the next 3 weeks or so, to be honest, if you want him to come back. But we'll see.
They play Monday night, so we'll see what happens. Let's talk about your running back, Saquon Barkley. And your backup is Brenda, and
Matt Breida.
Matt Breida. Is that somebody that I should put like an offer in for, Casey, or is he some waiver wire guy that I should try to go after, or just lay off, or what would you do?
The big issue with him is, he had a couple really good years, I think, in Miami. I forget where it was. The issue for him is their schedule. Let me see, like the next 4 weeks. Let me see what their schedule is. Remaining games. No. They play they play San Francisco this Thursday night. I think so they're not going to do anything there, right? Then after that, they play the Seahawks. So that's a decent matchup. Then they go Dolphins, Bills, Commanders, Jets. Like those are all decent run defenses, right? So that I just think unless you're Saquon talent, you can't run behind that Giants offensive line. So I'm shying away from, if you're desperate, right? He's the obvious handcuff. Saquon, I think, is going to miss a few weeks. I know Dayball is saying we're not ruling him out yet, but that was a pretty gruesome. If you watch the replay of that one,
I saw it. I think he's out for at least a couple of weeks.
That's the high ankle type. That didn't look like the mild sprain. So
no, and he's having a good year, and he got hurt in the fourth quarter, and it was a tough injury to watch. And I feel bad for the Giants fans, but because he's the center, he's your centerpiece. You know what I mean?
Well, he's what allows everybody else to go, and so going into San Francisco, I think it's even Thursday night, isn't it?
Yeah, Thursday night. Casey Scheinfeld, he'll be watching on the couch.
They are going to get just smoked, I think.
Yeah, it's a 9 point. I think it's a 9 or 10 point spread. I think it's 10.5 actually. And for a team to win by over 10 points in NFL, as tough as it is. So if you're betting it, I might even take the Giants. How about that? So let's talk about quarterbacks. Somebody that I was high on beginning of the year that now I'm not, just because he's hurt and I don't think he'll play anyway, is Joe Burrow. Yeah. Who at quarterback would you replace with Joe Burrow that could be available on the waiver wire, Casey?
Well, there's a couple. I mean, as much as we've laid into Russell Wilson the past couple of years, he's one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in performance so far this season. 485 yards, 5 touchdowns, only 1 interception in 2 games. He's been doing really well. He's only 50% owned. Mac Jones has been awesome. They're going against the Jets, so that's a tougher matchup, but he's doing well. And the much maligned Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay.
How about that story, Casey? 2-0.
And they're going against the Eagles next Monday night, and so that could end up being a shootout. So
I think it will too. The Eagles' defense, their DBs are hurt, so
their DBs aren't great right now, and so he might be airing the ball out a lot. I'd stay away from Rashad White in that game, but Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans is rejuvenated, and Chris Godwin, I would play all of them.
I agree. And what's Jordan Love at? Jordan Love has looked good the past 2 weeks.
I looked at him. He's over.
He's over 60% already. I mean, I drafted him in a few leagues too.
61%.
So 61. He could be available. They playing at home against Atlanta. I like that game a lot, especially with Jordan Love playing at home. He doesn't even need Christian Watson. He has this guy named Reed, who I love, and we'll talk about wide receivers right now. Reed for Green Bay. I forgot his first name. But he had 2 touchdowns last week, and he's the guy that he likes to throw to. I mean, he loves this guy, and I think he's like a must pick up in waiver wire this week coming up. I don't know when Christian Watson's coming back. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, once Watson comes back, his value is obviously going to take a hit. But in the meantime, I definitely would have him on my list of guys I'm targeting.
What other wide receivers do you like, Casey Scheinfeld?
Well, Josh Reynolds in Detroit.
Josh Reynolds. The reason I like Josh too is Golf and him played with each other with the Rams, and they have a great they read each other really well. So I'd like that pickup a lot. I'm surprised he's not over 60%.
But Tutu Atwell has been great in LA. Puka Nacua is getting all the love, and he deserves it. I mean, he's been the most efficient wide receiver.
What's his story? Tell me what college he went to. Tell me his background. I really know nothing about Puka. The guy you just said, Puka, blah blah blah.
Puka Nacua.
I mean, he looks Hawaiian. He looks like he's from Hawaii, maybe.
He played at both Washington and BYU.
Okay, so he's Mormon. He's probably Mormon. Makes sense because the Mormons love to recruit, from the islands.
He was not considered an excellent athlete. Like, he didn't test very well at the combine, right. But according to what I've heard, is he dominated at the Senior Bowl and just put himself, and that's what made him a 5th round pick. But Tutu Atwell has been on the field more plays than Nacua has, actually.
I saw that 95%. I mean, a high number. I mean,
and he's gotten 17 targets, so he's averaging over 8 targets a game. That's pretty good. Somebody who I can't believe he's only 51% owned is Rashid Shaheed for New Orleans.
Tell me why.
This guy, as a rookie last year, was one of the better best ball draft wide receivers out there, because when he hit, it was like 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. And this year he's getting over 5 targets a game, even though he's the number 3 receiver there. And if Michael Thomas gets hurt, which, let's be honest, we all assume he's going to at some point, Shaheed is going to get even more targets because he'll incorporate some of Thomas's looks. And he's a smart player and he's an athletic player. I don't know why he's only 51% owned. So that's another guy I would look at.
Yeah, he goes deep too. I mean, he is their big play guy. Yeah. I agree with you. And Michael Thomas, as long as the Saints keep winning, Michael Thomas will be still playing. I mean, that's the whole thing. He doesn't want to play on a losing team. So that's his trend. As long as the Saints are winning, Michael Thomas will be out there. As soon as he get a losing streak, he'll fake an injury and not play the rest of the year. What other wide receivers do you like, Casey? Anybody else I'm missing?
There's a few rookies who are out there. I mean, Sky Moore made an appearance again.
Yep, he came back, got a touchdown and everything.
He got 3 receptions, 70 yards and a touchdown. Like that's only 4 targets. That's going to be the big issue with Kansas City in general. Is Patrick Mahomes is so good outside of Travis Kelce, he spreads it around to everybody, and so he doesn't rely like Matthew Stafford is going to just feed the ball to Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell, but he's got Kadarius Toney, MVS. He's got Sky Moore. He's got
Richie James. Your guy Richie James. They has too.
Yeah, but the other guy then there's 2 rookies I really like. Marvin Mims Jr. in Denver. This guy Marvin Mims Jr. stud at Oklahoma, like
Oklahoma guy. Yeah,
he was a stud, and he only had 2 receptions in the game. He was targeted both times. He caught them both for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. And a touchdown. He's their deep target. If Jerry Jeudy takes a while to get back to full health, he could get more involved. And then Tank Dell seems to have really good chemistry with CJ Stroud. I remember an interview after the draft with Tank Dell, because I think he was taken in the 5th or 6th round. And according to the story, the reason he was drafted is because CJ Stroud said, I want that guy. I threw to him at some combine or something, and he's a receiver I want. So if it's somebody CJ Stroud really likes, he got 10 targets last week. They don't have a dominant wide receiver room in Texas, so in Houston, so there's no reason that he can't keep climbing the charts. I like
CJ Stroud had like a huge game too, Casey. I mean, he had over 300 yards and a couple TDs, I think. I mean, he looked great.
So those are the wide receivers that are out there right now.
I like it.
To be at the top of the list.
I like that. I like what you said. There's not much out there wide receiver wise, I feel, but you picked all the ones that I was going to say also. Let's talk about tight ends. I know it's a position that I hate talking about just because I think it's such a waste of a position, but we'll talk about it.
I'm going to pat myself on the back. If you remember on Thursday, you and Dan were praising Dallas Goedert, and I said I'd rather have Hunter Henry, and we had kind of a gentleman's bet about who was going to have a better week. They both caught 6 balls, so in that respect, they both got 6 PPR points. Goddard got a total of 22 yards and no touchdowns. Henry got 52 and a touch. It's his 2nd week in a row with a touchdown. He had another 50 yards last week and a touchdown. So Hunter Henry is, I think, the 2nd ranked tight end in fantasy.
He is the 2nd ranked tight end. He's having a great year. Mac Jones actually likes throwing to him.
Mac Jones likes throwing to the tight end. Jalen Hurts hates throwing short routes over the middle, which is what tight ends rely on. He's an outside the numbers guy. I was wrong when I called AJ Brown to be the number 1 last week for Philadelphia. I will never doubt Devonta Smith as a dominant alpha receiver again. But he doesn't throw to he's not a check down type of quarterback. So I think Dallas Goedert is not in a good system for himself.
I think Dallas will get his targets. But again, I think Hurts loves Smith and AJ Brown. I know Brown hasn't had a breakout game yet, but he will, obviously. But Goddard would be there. It's still a good tight end. He's still a top 10 tight end. I still would take him, top 10 for sure. I think Hunter Henry's the way to go. Let's talk games. I don't want to talk about defenses or anything else. The defense, any defenses pop up? Let's look at the matchups. I'll give you one defense I like. Are you ready?
Go for it.
That's going to be under 60%. I'll take the Dolphins D at home against Denver. I think the Dolphins have an underrated defense. I think they'll pressure Wilson, and I think Denver playing their first away game will have some problems in Miami. I have a feeling. We'll see what happens. Okay. But I'm just looking at the matchups, and
Well, here's a couple I would take. I would take this week Seattle's defense against Carolina at home.
Yep. Hard place to play, 12th man.
Kansas City at home against Chicago, I would take. And Jacksonville at home against Houston, I would take. Like
those are all great picks.
Are all kind of high on my list for who I would want right now at defense.
So let's kind of highlight some of the picks you should be starting in fantasy this week. Let's start Thursday night. We got the New York Giants are in San Francisco. Obviously, it's a tough matchup for the Giants. There's nobody really I would like on the Giants.
A healthy Darren Waller is the only one I might consider.
Yeah, just the defense for the Niners. I mean, they didn't play that great against the Rams. The Rams scored a lot of points off them, but the Niners at home with that defense, I would not want to be the Giants, trust me. And, of course, with the 49ers, I mean, I would even think about starting Brock Purdy against the Giants just because the Giants' defense isn't that great.
It's not great this year. They played a little better in the second half last week.
But they played a total of 8 quarters. They played a total of 8 quarters this year, and they probably played well in 1.5 quarters.
Right. And the only reason I worry about Brock Purdy in this game, and I agree, I'm in a 2 quarterback league, and I have to play him in one of them. But is I think they could be up big, pretty quick. And you're going to see, I think it's going to be an Elijah Mitchell type of game. I don't even think they're going to need to use, it's going to be like Golden State of 5 or 6 years ago when Steph Curry would average 34 points a game, but not play the fourth quarter. I could see this being an ugly game in that respect.
It could be. And if it is, then it kind of takes away from fantasy points from Ayuk.
I love Ayuk. He's one of my favorite wide receivers this year.
But again, if they're winning, they're not going to be throwing the ball. They'll be handing it off to Mitchell. You're 100% right. So I'm not jumping up and down about a great fantasy week for San Francisco. If you have somebody else to play on your team, you may want to do that. But again, it is Thursday night. You may want to play it anyway just to spin the wheel. Let's talk Sunday. This game's going to be high scoring. So if you have any of these players in any of these teams, you should start them. The Vikings are at home against the Chargers.
Oh, man.
Kirk Cousins was like the top point scorer last week in fantasy. He was unbelievable. He had 4 TDs. He over 300 yards. He was awesome. So against the weak Charger defense. So I think he'll do the same thing at home this week. Of course, you start Jefferson. Of course, you start Addison. These are people you have to start. And on the Charger side, Kelly looked okay. Eckler doesn't have a timetable, so we have no idea when he's coming back. So don't ask me.
I think, Kelly, he was going up against the Titans. Like, again, he was going,
he really loved the Titans defense. I have no respect.
Their run defense hasn't given up a 100-yard rusher in a significant period of time. They have the top ranked run defense in the NFL. Okay. They can't stop a pass, I think.
But the run defense is good.
You could run a go route, and I might be able to throw it over the top on him.
Probably. But, Charger-wise, we're taking Allen, right?
Allen, if Williams is healthy, you're taking Williams.
Mike Williams, I love, and
Tyler, that's it. Is it Gerald Everett? I might even take him in this.
Gerald Everett, number 7. Yep, I like him. He gets a lot of targets. He hasn't had.
If Mike Williams is banged up, then Quentin Johnston becomes an idea. And obviously, you're playing Justin Herbert.
So. Yeah, I think that game's going to be like a 31-28 situation.
Yeah, it could be another big one.
It's going to be a lot of points, a lot of fantasy points.
Hopefully, just as a Justin Jefferson owner in Dynasty, I'm hoping he's had 2 great weeks, but he hasn't found the end zone yet.
He will. He'll get it this week, and he'll have 100 yards. It's a great start, Casey Scheinfeld. Bills Commanders. I have a feeling that might be. Well, I think that might be a close game. It's in Washington. It could be low scoring. I'm not sold on Buffalo yet this year. I don't think they look as great as they did in previous years. And Washington's 2-0, and they're at home, and they're the underdog. I think they feed off that stuff. I know I wouldn't want to play the Commanders right now. I think Mitchell's playing really well.
Sam Howell's playing well.
Sam Howell, I love over 300 yards. Got a touchdown.
And he can run. So he's kind of a Josh Allen kind of type of player.
And the Green Bay is playing at home against the Saints. I feel that's going to be low scoring. I don't know why. I just feel I don't know.
Didn't they go low scoring against Atlanta, Green Bay, or did they score a bunch?
They had 20.
No, they put up 20-some points.
Yeah, they put 20-some points. But I just feel that game to me sounds like a low scoring game. I don't know why, but of course you have to start the obvious people like Olave and people like that, and then Tony Jones, Casey Scheinfeld, he might be the starting running back.
Let's not confuse
Tony Jones Jr., Notre Dame grad, little guy, but again, he's their starting. He'll be a starting running back.
Yeah, Jamal Williams has the hamstring injury.
So what do you do with Tony Jones?
I think you run him out there.
Run him out there. Tony Jones.
If you have
Fighting Irish, you play Ohio State this week. Go out there.
Here you go.
The Lions are playing.
Hold on, we got a question. Would you trade Jonathan Taylor for Calvin Ridley?
You're asking me right now? I would take Ridley. Jonathan Taylor to me just seems like a guy that doesn't want to play. He's one of these guys. Oh yeah, I want more money, and then they're like, and then he blows it up with the owner of the Colts. And now he's like on the PUP list for 4 weeks.
It's funny.
I love Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's going to have like 14, 15 touchdowns. I know he didn't score last week. I know that. But don't lecture me.
He only had 2 receptions.
But I'm saying is that the guys that's the threat, and they're at home this week too. Ridley's going to be a top 5 wide receiver this year. Mark my words.
So Bronson, I have a question for you, because your other one is, should he trade Etienne or Ramondre for Chris Olave? I take it your 3 running backs are Etienne, Ramondre, and Taylor, and you don't have great depth at wide receiver, so you're trying to trade from running back. I would rather Calvin Ridley than Chris Olave. Oh, that's interesting.
I love Ridley, so you're talking.
I love them both. Of those 3 running backs, I'd probably most like getting rid of Jonathan Taylor, because Etienne and Ramondre, as long as they stay healthy, are guaranteed to have the majority snap share for their team.
And they suit up. They're in uniform.
Right. And Jonathan Taylor, who knows what conditioning he's in? Nobody knows what team he's going to play for. Nobody knows. He said he's prepared to sit out until week 8. So
yeah, and that's like 2/3 of your fantasy season. So there you go.
I would probably, if those are the trade options, I would probably trade for Calvin Ridley.
So this next game, another high-scoring game. Detroit's at home, and Detroit loves playing at home, Casey Scheinfeld. They love it. They're playing Atlanta, who I love. Bijan Mustard Man Robinson. He's great. I mean, this guy is the real deal. This guy's a future Hall of Famer. You heard it from me first. Everybody's been saying that anyway. But of course, in Atlanta, you got to start Bijan Mustard Robinson, correct?
Yeah, I mean, look.
Anybody else you like on Atlanta against Detroit?
Well, Drake London had a great game last week.
Yep. People were down on
Atlanta's Arthur Smith's coaching philosophy is to take the air out of the ball and play as slow of an offense as possible,
Yep.
And so Bijan is obviously a must start. Kyle Pitts has to do something eventually, right? I mean,
it's just like, when is this guy going to have a big game? I think you need to see
him out of him before you can start him. I would start Drake London. I just think, if it gets into any sense of a shootout, if Detroit puts up a few touchdowns, because between St. Brown and Gibbs and Reynolds, like, you're going to get some, and Laporta, who has over.
And also, you said Reynolds. They have 2 Reynolds. One's a running back, and Josh Reynolds is a wide receiver.
Yeah.
They said Reynolds is going to get a lot of carries, the running back.
Is Montgomery hurt? Is it Montgomery?
Montgomery's hurt for at least 2 weeks. He's out. Okay. So Reynolds is another running back that's out. I forgot to mention his name. So Reynolds is a guy that you can pick up. I forgot to mention him in waiver wire also. He is going to get the ball. And he had some great games last year. I don't know if anybody remembers. So that's another guy you should put on your waiver wire list.
It's hard on a Tuesday to say who are must starts, right? Because we got 5 days before Sunday. Yeah. So if St. Brown practices all week and is healthy, because he had a hamstring or a quad issue during the game, he's a must start. Jared Goff, I think, is a must start at home.
Goff at home's a must start. At home.
Ooh, I'm being offered AJ Brown and Saquon for Pollard and Addison. Do I accept? No, you don't accept, because Pollard is healthy, Saquon is not. So that's why he's trying to make that trade. And I don't think AJ Brown is enough of an upgrade over Addison at this point. Do you, Ross?
It's so funny. People are so down on AJ Brown, and same with Jamar
I'm
Chase.
Not down on him, but because they have two alpha wide receivers.
AJ Brown, beginning of the season, he was a first round, second round pick. Addison was in the 5th and 6th round, and Addison's moved up. And I knew Addison was going to have a big year just because I saw him play at USC.
And because he's opposite Justin Jefferson. So they always roll coverage to one side. You can't do that in Philadelphia because
And I love Pollard. I love any running back for Dallas who's playing a lot. They love running the ball. They have a great
I
offensive
wouldn't
line.
make the trade either.
I would keep Pollard. That's the one in Chicago. Barkley has a sprained ankle, and you never know how he's going to recover off that.
And he's had trouble coming back from injury before. Soft tissue makes it worse.
So I would keep Pollard and Addison. I like that. I would not. AJ Brown, he's probably wants to dump. And Jamar Chase owners, they want to dump him too. So right now is a good time to go and trade for Jamar Chase. Right now, do it today, because Jamar Chase is going to start playing some football. But I've been making offers for Jamar Chase all morning. Let's talk about some. I'm not talking about all the games, Casey. I'm just going to talk about some special games that I think be high scoring that makes sense for fantasy owners.
Sure.
Let's talk about the Bears are at the Chiefs. Who do you start for the Chiefs, Case?
What up, Christopher? Mahomes and Kelsey. I think I would start Pacheco too, because
Pacheco, I was going to say too, Casey. I think Pacheco's going to have a big game against the Bears, who has a horrible run defense. Horrible.
But I don't. You can run Sky Moore out there. There's a chance. I think MVS is probably the safest one because he gets the consistent targets, but he doesn't do anything flashy. Kadarius Toney, if he plays, is a 3-yard bubble screen away from a 75-yard touchdown. Oh, wow. The guy with Saquon and AJB is also willing to add Breece Hall. Yes, then I would probably do it. I'm giving up Pollard, but I'm getting Breece Hall and AJ Brown. And then once Saquon comes back, my running back depth is.
I might do that too. I like Breece Hall is a monster.
Look, you're gonna sacrifice for the next week or two. Well, let's see. Who do the Jets play this weekend?
The Jets are playing the Patriots in New York, or in New Jersey, excuse me.
Okay, that's not a terrible matchup. And then, so the Eagles are going to Tampa Bay. That could be a win for AJ Brown. Dallas is playing whom? Dallas is playing Arizona. So Tony Pollard's going to have a big day probably this weekend. But
I agree. I think the Bears will have a good game offensively, like
Ross,
fantasy numbers. Thoughts on Ford? Yes, you pick up Ford. He's going to be the starting running back for a while. I like Ford a lot. I think that's a no-brainer. He looked good the games he played in. He played some pretty good defensive teams the past 2 weeks.
They're also saying Kareem is visiting. I don't think Kareem Hunt, even if he's coming back, is going to be up to speed in the first 3 weeks anyway. So
I hope Kareem. I have Kareem Hunt in our fantasy league, Casey. I hope he stayed in shape. I hope he did like the extra workouts. So he's just ready to play in this pretty uniform on.
How much fab are we blowing on Ford? Look, here's the way I would put it. If Chubb wasn't on the Browns and Ford was the number one running back going into the season, he's a 4th or 5th round pick. How much would you pay for an extra 4th round pick in the draft? Right. So I would probably spend at least 60%. If I was doing a percentage of my fab budget. It might even be more if I'm running back needy.
And I'll guarantee you this, George. I guarantee that there's going to be more injuries next week, and you'll be wishing, God, I wish I saved my money for this week. So you just got to pick your poison. I mean, that's the best advice I can give you, because there's going to be players that, like you said, Travis Henry can go down, and then
Derrick Henry
will go down, and then we're stuck with his backup, and it's just like you don't know what's going to happen the next week.
The difference between Ford and like Zach Moss or Matt Breida or even Josh, who's the running back in the Chargers? I'm blanking.
Kelly, Eckler, Austin Eckler. Kelly's their backup.
Those running backs.
They have Spiller too.
Those stud running backs are all returning at some point this season. We know that Chubb is not coming back. So Ford, even if they bring somebody in, is still going to get at least 50% of the timeshare. There's nobody they can bring in now that's going to take a majority of the timeshare away.
No one. Yeah, I agree.
So
I think Ford has been playing great. They're not going to let the guy just sit there. He's going to be getting the ball at least 50%.
So I would spend 60 to 70% probably of my fab budget if I really needed a running back. Okay, RGQ says I get
Jason Bourne.
Right, Jason Bourne and so he's got Kendrick Bourne and Rashid Shaheed on my bench. Should I drop any of these guys for Tank Dell, Tutu Atwell, or Jaden Reed? Wow, Those are all on your wire. Who are your starting?
Is it a four-man league or?
Oh wow, that's tough. I think
I love Shaheed. I mean,
my issue with Tutu Atwell and Jaden Reed is when Christian Watson and Cooper Kupp come back, those two lose shares. I think Tank Dell is the most ascending player of the three you're talking about. Bourne has been getting a lot of targets, some deep balls too. So I've been iffy on dropping. And I agree with you. He's the number one receiver right now. Juju is not.
No, Juju should never be a number one choice in any.
And Shaheed again is a Michael Thomas glass slipper away from being the number two there and being on the field for 70% of the snaps. So the only one I would consider was Tank Dell, but I probably would not drop either of those two. If I was, it would be Kendrick Bourne.
KC, the season ends today. Who's your MVP of the NFL right now?
If the season ends today, who's my MVP of the NFL? Wow, that's a good question. Who would it be? I'm trying. Micah Parsons.
Mine's Tutu. Mine's Tua for the Miami Dolphins. That's my MVP. I feel that he is playing really well, and the reason I brought his name up is because Miami is at home against Denver. And would you start? Who do you think Tua is going to be the best quarterback this week in the NFL?
Who's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL?
I feel Tua is going to be the best game of any quarterback in the NFL this week coming up. What's your opinion?
Let's see.
Because I have Tua in one of my leagues, KC, and I also have the quarterback for the Chargers, and I'm kind of leaning towards starting Tua.
Wow. Okay. I think I'm going to go either with Patrick Mahomes against Chicago because they're a terrible defense, or I'm actually going to throw Justin Herbert against Minnesota.
Okay. I have Justin Herbert in my league too, and I just don't know who to start over Tua and Justin Herbert. So
Tua going at home against Denver is great, but isn't there talk of like a hurricane making landfall at some point?
I hope not. I hope you're wrong. I have to look at weather.
So Carlos Rodriguez, I'm very worried about continuing to start Justin Fields. I know I shouldn't drop him, but should I bench him until he shows me something? It depends who your backup is, or who's on the waiver wire. I am not a huge Justin Fields proponent. I'm on the record saying I don't think he's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL next season.
Yep.
But for fantasy purposes, he's not as bad as he is in real life. But yeah, if I had a backup like you mentioned Tua or Dak Prescott or even Matt Stafford, I would start them over Justin Fields.
And you got to remember the Bears defense is horrible, probably bottom feeders in the NFL, which means Kansas City is going to score a lot of points this weekend against them, which means Justin's going to have to run, throw, do whatever he can to get points. So I like that matchup for Justin Fields this week just because of that factor.
Yeah, but you're right. But he's right in that he throws bad and he makes bad reads. He hangs onto the ball too long. He makes RGQ. Who should I start this week? Waller versus San Francisco or Henry versus New Jersey? Okay, it's Tuesday, and Darren Waller is a lot like Michael Thomas to me in that he could slip in the shower. He could bust a hammy going up the steps. So you got to watch his health for the week. I think if he's fully healthy and not on the injury report, he's probably your top play because he's going to be a target monster for Daniel Jones, especially with Saquon Barkley out. Otherwise, the Jets, while they're a very good defense, have been very exposed against tight ends, and Mac Jones loves throwing to Hunter Henry. So if Waller's on the questionable mark with his hamstring, I'd probably go Hunter Henry. If Waller is fully healthy, I would go Waller versus San Francisco.
Sounds good. They're both tough matchups, but I would lean towards Henry more than Waller, just because I think the Patriots will be throwing to the tight end more this week against the Jets. Casey, I want to ask you about this game because I feel this might be a big game in fantasy. You'll probably laugh at me, but I'm going to say it anyway. The Jacksonville is hosting the Houston Texans.
Yep.
I feel Trevor Lawrence is going to have a huge game at home against Houston. I just feel it. I feel Ridley's going to have a big game. ETM's going to have a big game. I think it's a must start for anybody on Jacksonville. They're going to be scoring a lot of points. And, Jacksonville's defense isn't that great. And Stroud looked really good. Is Stroud somebody that you would consider starting in any of your leagues?
I'm not starting him yet. No.
Okay.
A rookie quarterback. I'm not starting him yet. I wouldn't start either of the running backs either, because Jacksonville has a surprisingly good run defense. But I would look at if Nico Hollins is healthy, or if Tank Dell is the number 2 now. Those are 2 guys I might look at. Okay. Would you look to be picking up Cam Akers? Wee Hall asks, because he has room on his bench to keep him there, but is wondering if you guys believe he'd be a good pickup. I don't think if you have room on your bench,
absolutely,
sure, because he could be on the Cleveland Browns or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the next 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden you have a good running back sitting on your bench. If you have the room, it never hurts to pick somebody up.
I think Cam's gonna. I think you're right. I think he'll be on a different team next week, and again, I think he'll finish the year off really strong.
Hi, Sharia. How are you? Or Sharia? I don't mean to mispronounce Marcus Carter. I've got Hill, Atwell, Josh Reynolds, Pickens, Wilson, and Davis as my receivers. Wow, that's a really impressive group of receivers. Hill is a must start. Who else would you start? 2 open spots. For me, it's George Pickens and Garrett Wilson, I think. Right?
I would.
Man,
I'm not Garrett. I would take Josh Reynolds at home with Detroit, and the way that Goff loves this guy and throws to him. I like Josh Reynolds this week at home. I think he's going to have a huge day.
Yeah, I could see that. And
I'm worried about Wilson. I mean, Zach Wilson looked horrible, and he didn't even get over 200 yards last week.
Yeah,
I'm worried about that. I'm worried about that, and of course, Hill's your must start. So I would do Reynolds and probably Pickens. Pickens looked great. That was a great catch and run by him.
She said it's Shariah, like Mariah. Sorry.
Shariah. I got it right, Marcus.
Scared of Pickens because Pickett is weird. Yes. But with
Pittsburgh
Deontay Johnson out, Pickens gets the volume. Reynolds and Tutu are both good ones. So
Pittsburgh is in Las Vegas, and that's a Sunday night game. So I think Pickens will have I think he'll have a good game.
The Raiders are not a scary defense.
It's not the defense they had in the 70s with Lyle Lozano and all those guys.
Spencer Henn, in a keeper league, would you give up DJ Moore and Drake London for Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Absolutely. Press accept immediately.
I wouldn't even
press
give
accept right now.
I think
DJ Moore.
Amon-Ra probably gets more targets than the both of them combined. Yeah, he's only 23 years old. Or 24 years old.
Press accept.
He's got a better quarterback throwing to him. Like everything is lined up.
Nothing else you got to say. Just accept it. You're getting a top. Well, he calls himself the number 11 wide receiver in a press conference.
Because he wears number 11, right?
He says, "I'm the number 11." I don't know why he just said it. It's stupid.
But he's a top 5 wide receiver. You're getting that for DJ Moore, who I love, but Justin Fields, who we've notoriously not loved. And Drake London, who I love, but Desmond Ridder, I don't trust either. So,
okay, Casey. Any players before we leave? Any players that you're kind of targeting that are not living up to their potential that you want to trade for to get on your team right now? And who do you want to go after? That, like I said, Jamar Chase, just because.
If somebody,
the owners are mad. I mean, I talked to you. You said on your show that Jamar Chase is going to be the number 1 receiver. And actually, I did, knowing that Joe Burrow would be healthy, but he's not. But I mean, people are angry, which is great.
I think Josh Jacobs is somebody you could target because he's not done anything yet. And his owners might be getting restless, especially with how difficult it's been. I think Mark Andrews might be a target you could look for.
I like Mark Andrews.
I like him a lot. And then Jahmyr Gibbs. Yes, he's a rookie, but with him having the number 12 pick of the draft in the real NFL, people drafted him in the 3rd or 4th round, anticipating he was going to be a dynamic running back. And he has 20 touches total through 2 games, only 7 carries an average in each game. So there are some guys you can really target. Christian Watson might be somebody you could target because he hasn't played yet.
That's a great one.
Those are the guys.
I like that. And somebody to stay away from, Najee Harris. We've been saying that ever since we started fantasy football. We said stay away from him. He's just doesn't have it anymore. He's too old. He's like 25, but he gets hurt. He got hurt too many times. Najee Harris, horrible.
Okay, how would you prioritize these waivers? Jerome Ford, Nico Collins, Roschon Johnson, CJ Stroud, 10-team PPR. Look, in a 10-team PPR, there's no reason to have CJ Stroud.
No, there's just leave him on waiver wire the rest of your life.
Right. You should have a better quarterback as your number one, and might have a better quarterback if you have a second one on the bench. I'm prioritizing Ford, Nico, Johnson, probably in that order, because it's PPR and I like the wide receiver. I like Roschon Johnson for the rest of the season, though. I'm not a huge Khalil Herbert believer, but I think Nico Hollins is the number one in Houston, and I'd rather have the number one receiver. And Ford, to me, it might be the top pickup of the season at this point.
Wow. You heard it first right here from Casey Scheinfeld, top pickup of the season.
All right, one last one. Hall. Do you believe Gainwell is a good pickup? I picked up Josh Kelly last week and don't know if I should keep him or drop him for someone else. Thanks again.
Okay, so Swift had a huge game. I actually started him in some leagues I have Swift in. He had like a monster game. I don't see him being like not getting the ball anymore. I see him as the number one running back. There's no way.
Right.
But Gainwell will get handoffs, but he's not going to be the key guy.
And he was the number one in week 1. And the thing you have to remember, I would probably do it depending on who my other running backs are, because I think Joshua Kelly goes back to being a handcuff in 2 to 3 weeks. And I think DeAndre Swift is going to be hurt in 2 to 3 weeks because every year he gets hurt for 4 or 5 games. And then they're not going to give it to Rashard Penny. They're not going to give it to Scott. It's going to be Gainwell again. And so I think in terms of upside, I think Gainwell has the most upside season long. But for the next 2 weeks, Kelly's the better play. So
I agree. And you just mentioned Rashid Penny. He's another guy that can be a Cleveland Brown, just so you know. It can easily happen because he's just sitting there in Philadelphia.
He said he already has Eckler, and I'm assuming that's Kyron Williams you're talking about as the other one. If you have an IR spot on your roster, a lot of Yahoo leagues have an IR spot. You can put Eckler in there, and then he doesn't take up a roster spot, and you can hang on to Joshua Kelly and pick up Kenneth Gainwell. I don't know if you have somebody in your IR.
If you don't, I would probably keep Kelly just because he's your handcuff.
Yeah, because he's your handcuff for Austin Eckler.
There you go. It's a 20 quarterback league. Wow.
No, SVG was pointing out where it was Stroud. It was a 2 quarterback lead, and he faded quarterback. So he ended up with Geno Smith and Danny Dimes. I like them both better than CJ Stroud. I do. I don't know who your third quarterback is, but your third quarterback isn't important enough to move over Ford, Nico Hollins, or Rashad Johnson.
I agree. So, but I do like CJ Stroud in the future. So I don't know. You should hold on to him if it's a dynasty.
Jerome Ford or Zach Moss. I think I'm going to drop McKinnon.
Drop McKinnon. Don't think. Do it.
There's and take Ford.
And take Ford.
I love Zach
Moss second.
Moss. I bet on. I thought Zach Moss was going to end up being Buffalo's running back. He never really took the reins away from Singletary, and then he got dumped. But Indianapolis is not a very good team. Zach Moss had a good week last week. If Anthony Richardson is out with a concussion, that means Gardner Minshew, the stash, is your quarterback.
I love Gardner. Just so you know, Gardner Minshew, they won last week.
But they're going up against Baltimore this week. I think it could
but I like Gardner Minshew. I think the kid's a winner, and I root for him. You know, he got a car for his high school graduation, and he still drives it. You know that case?
What's that? Yeah, I know.
He was given a car. His parents bought him a car. I didn't even get a car for my graduation, but this guy did. And he still drives the same car to work every day. It's unbelievable. That's why I like Gardner Minshew. And the mustache. But yes, Ford first, Moss second, obviously. Drop McKinnon. I wouldn't even have him on my team.
I like McKinnon, but I don't not more than those guys.
It's just a third down passing situation.
McKinnon's a best ball guy. If you're in a best ball league, McKinnon's a good one to draft late.
I did draft him in a few
He
leagues.
will have a few games where he has 5 receptions for 60 yards or 50 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that's when he can really help you. So
okay, well, Casey, it's that hour, it's that time, it's that minute. We have to get going. So if you guys have any more follow-up questions, you can always email us.
Or leave it in the chat. You leave
it in the chat, and we'll check it out. But we'll be back here on Thursday at 1:30, 4:30 Eastern. And we'll be with Dr. Dan Ratner. I think he's back, right? Or is he still traveling the world?
Oh, no, he might be traveling on Thursday.
He's traveling the world still. It's unbelievable. Casey and I will be here. But make sure you get your waiver wires in tonight, because most leagues happens tonight, right, Case, on Tuesday night?
Yes, it does.
So make sure you get in there. And I'm Ross the Boss, and that's Flat to the Bone, Casey Scheinfeld. And we'll see you guys on Thursday. Thanks for watching.